Picture a moon so wild and crazy it seems like it came from a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Way out in space, circling the giant planet Jupiter, there's a place called Io. This moon doesn't act like other moons. It's like a giant volcano in the sky, spitting glowing lava so high it almost touches the stars. Its surface looks like a colorful pizza, splashed with bright yellows, reds, and greens. Io is super far from the Sun, about 390 million miles away, even farther than Mars. It should be a cold, icy rock, but instead, it's bursting with heat, like a planet-sized oven that never stops cooking. Scientists are amazed by Io because it's teaching us big ideas about energy, motion, and maybe even life on faraway worlds. Let's go on an adventure to this fiery moon and find out why it's so special, in a way that's easy to understand. Like a fun story for a kid like you. Io is about the same size as our moon. A big round ball about 600 kilometers wide. That's bigger than the whole United States. From one side to the other. Our moon is quiet, covered in gray dust and craters. But Io is alive and full of action. It zooms around Jupiter super fast, making one full circle in just 1.77 days. That's quicker than the time it takes to have a weekend with your friends. Io is one of 4 big moons around Jupiter, called the Galilean moons, and it's the closest one to the giant planet. It's tidally locked, which means the same side of Io always faces Jupiter, just like our moon always shows us the same face. But here's where things get super strange. Io's path around Jupiter isn't a perfect circle. It's stretched out, like an oval egg. This happens because Io is stuck in a cosmic tug-of-war with Jupiter and 2 other moons, Europa and Ganymede. This tug-of-war is like a dance in space. For every 1 trip Ganymede makes around Jupiter, Europa makes 2, and Io races around 4 times. This special pattern, called a resonance, pulls and stretches Io like a squishy toy you might play with. Imagine squeezing a soft ball over and over. It gets warm, right? That's what happens to Io. But instead of a toy, it's a huge rock. Jupiter's super strong gravity, along with the pulls from Europa and Ganymede, squishes Io so much that its insides get really hot. This is called tidal heating, and it's like Io has a giant oven inside, melting rocks into gooey, glowing lava. This heat powers more than 400 volcanoes on Io, way more than the 500 active volcanoes we have on Earth. That makes Io the most volcanically active place in our entire solar system. Io's volcanoes aren't like the ones you might draw with a pointy top. They're wild and messy, like giant puddles of hot, glowing lava. Some volcanoes shoot lava and gas so high, up to 500 kilometers, that it flies right out into space. That's taller than 300 school buses stacked on top of each other. One of the biggest volcanoes, called Loki Patera, is like a huge lava lake, as wide as a big city like New York. It glows so bright that scientists can see it from Earth using special telescopes that detect heat, called infrared telescopes. Another volcano, named Prometheus, has been erupting non-stop since 1979, when a spacecraft called Voyager first spotted it. That's longer than most grown-ups have been alive. There's also a volcano called Pele that shoots out huge clouds of gas and dust, making a giant ring around itself like a fiery crown in the sky. The lava on Io is super hot, sometimes reaching 500 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than the hottest oven you could imagine. Way too hot to cook pizza. Some of this lava is made of special rocks called ultramafic, which are like the gooey stuff Earth's insides had billions of years ago when our planet was just a baby. So, when we look at Io, it's like peeking at what Earth might have looked like a long time ago. Because Io has lower gravity than Earth, its lava flows super fast, spreading out like syrup pouring over pancakes. These flows can cover huge areas in just a few days, making new land all the time. One big eruption can cover thousands of square kilometers with fresh, glowing lava, changing Io's surface faster than anything we see on Earth. Let's talk about Io's wild colors. If you saw Io, you'd think someone painted it like a giant Easter egg or a crazy art project. It's covered in bright yellows, deep reds, glowing whites, and even strange greens. These colors come from a chemical called sulfur, which smells like rotten eggs here on Earth. When Io's volcanoes erupt, they spit out sulfur and a gas called sulfur dioxide. When this stuff cools down, it turns into yellow or red patches on the surface. The white spots look like snow, but they're not made of water. They're frozen sulfur dioxide, like frost made of chemicals. When Io moves into Jupiter's shadow, it gets super cold, as low as -150 degrees Celsius. The thin air around Io freezes and falls to the ground like snow. Then, when sunlight hits it again, it turns back into gas, puffing up into a wispy atmosphere that's too thin to breathe. The green spots are the weirdest of all. They're made from a rare chemical called sulfur monoxide, which only forms because Io gets zapped by powerful energy from Jupiter's magnetic field. This field is like a giant invisible bubble of energy around Jupiter. It blasts Io with tiny charged particles, like a sandstorm in space. These particles hit Io's surface, break apart chemicals, and make new ones, creating those wild green colors. This thin atmosphere can't make weather like rain or wind, but it's enough to carry colorful dust from volcanoes, spreading it across Io like an artist painting a canvas. The result is a moon that looks like no other place in the solar system. A swirling mix of fire and color that's always changing. Io's surface is always getting a makeover because of all these eruptions. Every year, it gets a new layer of stuff, about 1 centimeter thick, like covering your backyard with a thin blanket of lava dust. Unlike our moon, which is covered in craters from space rocks hitting it, Io has no craters because its volcanoes keep covering them up. It's like Io is always getting a fresh coat of paint. But not everything on Io is made of lava. There's a tall, pointy hill called Steeple Mountain, about 7 kilometers high, taller than Mount Everest, the biggest mountain on Earth. It's not a volcano but a chunk of rock pushed up when Io's crust gets squished and stretched. Scientists have spotted other sharp hills like this, sticking out of the ground like giant teeth in a sea of fire. These hills form because Io's crust is always moving, collapsing in some places and popping up in others. For a long time, scientists thought Io had a huge ocean of lava under its crust, like a giant pool of melted rock. But a spaceship called Juno, which started exploring Jupiter in 2016, found something different. In 2023 and 2024, Juno flew super close to Io, getting as near as 1,500 kilometers. That's closer than some planes fly above Earth. Juno took amazing pictures and measured Io's gravity, like feeling how heavy the moon is in different spots. These measurements showed that Io doesn't have one big lava ocean but lots of smaller lava pockets, like bubbles of hot goo deep inside. Each pocket feeds different volcanoes, so they all act a little differently, like having their own personalities. Some volcanoes, like Loki Patera, erupt in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, while others, like Prometheus, just keep going and going. Juno's cameras showed us Io's lava lakes up close. Some of these lakes have crusts that break and sink into the hot lava below, like ice cracking on a frozen pond. Others have glowing lava rings around their edges, where hot lava bubbles up. Juno caught volcanoes erupting, with plumes of gas shooting up like giant fountains. These pictures let scientists watch Io's surface change day by day, like a movie of a planet being born. Juno also found that Io's crust is super thin, like a fragile eggshell stretched over all that raging heat. Every volcano is like its own little world, with its own heartbeat, pumping lava and reshaping the land. All this wild energy makes scientists wonder about life. On Earth, hot places like volcanoes and hot springs are home to tiny creatures, like bacteria, that love heat. Could Io have something like that? Probably not on the surface. It's too hot and gets hit by tons of radiation. About 4 0.000 times more than what's safe for humans. That's like standing in a super strong X-ray machine all day. But maybe deep inside, where it's warm but not too crazy, there could be strange microbes living in the heat. Even if Io doesn't have life, it's teaching us about other moons, like Europa, which might have a hidden ocean with living things, or Enceladus, a moon around Saturn that shoots out water like a sprinkler. Io's story started way back in 1610, when a scientist named Galileo Galilei first saw it through a telescope. That's why Io and its siblings are called the Galilean moons. In 1979, the Voyager spacecraft flew by Io and saw its volcanoes for the first time, shocking scientists who thought moons were boring. Since then, other spacecraft like Galileo and Juno have shown us even more. Juno's close visits have given us the clearest pictures ever, showing lava flows moving, plumes shooting up, and those strange hills like Steeple Mountain forming right before our eyes. Scientists also learned that Io's volcanoes are so powerful they can shoot out 1,000 tons of material every second, enough to fill a swimming pool in a blink. Io doesn't just change itself, it affects Jupiter too. Some of the gas and dust from Io's eruptions gets caught in Jupiter's magnetic field, creating a giant ring of particles called the Io plasma torus. This ring glows with energy and can even cause auroras on Jupiter, like colorful lights dancing in the planet's sky. It's like Io is a tiny moon bossing around a giant planet. Io also creates a special tube of energy, called a flux tube, that connects it to Jupiter, sending electric currents that make Jupiter's atmosphere sparkle. Scientists are excited to learn more about Io. They want to send more spacecraft, maybe even a lander to touch its surface and feel its heat. Io is teaching us that moons can be just as exciting as planets. It's a living, fiery world where gravity turns into fire, where chemicals paint the land, and where every day brings something new. Io shows us that the universe doesn't follow our rules, it makes its own. If a moon like Io can exist, with its glowing lava and wild colors, what other amazing places might be out there? Maybe there are other moons or planets just as strange, burning and boiling in ways we can't even imagine yet. Io is a reminder that the universe is full of surprises, waiting for us to explore.